Hi, and thank you to the organizers for facilitating this event and for inviting me to be here today. I'm excited to hear your feedback. This is a diverse group, so I'm privileged to be here. As mentioned, my name is Percy Campbell. I'm a PhD candidate in the Political Science Department here at UVic. In general, I study privacy in the internet, but lately my key focus has been on smart speakers for older adults. The content that I'm presenting here today is from some of what I've been working on for my dissertation, which is titled Aging in Place with Google and Amazon. So part of my research question that I wanted to explore with you is the following. What are the privacy implications of using smart speakers for aging in place? So first, I'll give you a little bit of an overview about smart speakers, how they operate, why this might matter to older adults, and then at the end, I'll discuss a few ways that we can consider looking at the issue. So for context, most older adults wish to age in place, meaning that they would like to live in their homes for as long as they can. For the last 2 decades or so, AgeTech has become increasingly popular. AgeTech can be described as digital technologies or digital communications technologies that are either designed or repurposed to help make everyday life easier for aging adults and to take some of the burden off caregivers as well. Some smart speakers and other smart home systems like sensors and cameras are promoted as AgeTech, even if they weren't originally designed as such. So by 2018, 35% of older Canadians who already use the internet were also using a smart home device of some kind. And these numbers are expected to grow as these things become more popular and accessible. A smart speaker is considered to be a smart home device that you can interact with through voice commands such as Google Home or Amazon Echo. As you probably already know, you can connect to these devices through using the wake word, such as Alexa. So if you have one of these, you could say, "Hey Alexa, what do I have planned today?" Or, "Hey Alexa, can you remind me to take my medication every day at noon?" So these voice assistants allow users to search for information on the web, control other smart devices in the home, such as surveillance cameras, thermostats, smart locks, or light switches. Or they can be used to contact family members, recall schedules, set reminders, connect to third-party apps, and more. So both Google and Amazon are looking to expand their reach and to get into as many homes as possible by lowering prices, sometimes giving these things away for free, such as if you subscribe to premium versions of Spotify or YouTube. And not much has been written about this so far, but we're starting to see some studies come out in the last couple of years where older adults do seem to be using them for things like home control. If somebody has low levels of mobility, that could be useful. Schedule reminders, entertainment like music or checking the weather, searching for information, or even for digital companionship through daily conversations with Alexa. In one study, the authors quoted below, where one participant said, "Alexa is like having a little robot friend to talk to. I'm a senior citizen and live alone. I think the Echo is a great device for seniors. You can ask Alexa the same question 50 times and she won't get irritated with you." So you'll see here, I'm not going to get too much into this, but this is part of my research as well. These tools are promoted on pretty much every article that lists off holiday gift ideas or holiday gift ideas for older adults. And as you can see here, lots of senior care blogs or tech review blogs also promote smart speakers for older adults. Here's an image of the Amazon Echo Show and the smaller Echo Dot, just for context. So what's the problem? These things seem useful. Well, for my research, here are 2 major things to consider. First, behavioral data, such as what you say to Alexa or Google, is collected for marketing purposes or for shopping recommendations. And second, in order for these companies to collect behavioral data, users need to consent to the terms, which we will get to in a second. Here's an image of what one of the Google Nest Hub devices looks like as well. So when these companies collect behavioral data, who cares? What does it matter if they can hear the sound of someone's voice or what they're asking for? Well, it turns out that voice, cadence, and tone, as well as background environmental information, can reveal all kinds of personal data about someone. So this information can be used to infer whether somebody is experiencing physical health issues, mental health problems, what type of mood they might be in, whether they're tired, and much more. So voice in and of itself is sensitive, like regardless of the content. For example, here's a recent patent from Amazon where you can see the woman is telling Alexa that she's hungry while she's sniffling and coughing at the same time. So Alexa notices and responds, "Would you like a recipe for chicken soup? And by the way, would you like to order cough drops with 1-hour delivery?" The woman says, "Yes, thanks for asking." So that's one example where in the not so distant future, the sound of voice could very well be used for shopping recommendations with Amazon devices, even without the content of what's being said. And regarding content, Google already uses what you say to the smart speaker to add to behavioral ad profiles. So let's say you say something to Google Assistant about feeling anxious, you could start to see ads for something like meditation apps when you go on your phone or computer. So again, why does this matter? Well, in Canada, privacy law hinges on the notion of consent. So in order for businesses to use your information to show you personalized recommendations or ads, you first need to consent. This is called a notice and consent policy. Most of us have seen it 100 times. We blaze right through it and click accept to get to the service. You can't use the device at all without consenting to the terms, right? So when you set up any device or any user profile, you need to click I accept the terms. Normally, no one reads these things. So in general, too much responsibility is already put on the user to protect their own privacy in kind of a false choice scenario, because you can't use it unless you clicked I accept. But here, in this kind of situation where smart speakers may be used as AgeTech, it's even worse because imagine a situation where somebody else configures a smart speaker device and its privacy settings for an aging adult. So of course, older people are not a homogeneous group. They have different levels of abilities, digital literacy, and privacy preferences. But for those who may be newer to smart technology or might have lower levels of digital literacy, especially if they're from underserved communities, somebody might configure the device for them. The problem is, if that's the case, that person never saw the terms of use, never really consented to the data collection in the first place, and they also likely don't have a chance to limit their privacy settings or know where to review them or change them. So for example, if you wanted to go in and delete your Amazon recordings or change your privacy settings, you need to go into the settings on your profile, either on the computer or on a smartphone to manage those settings. So how is somebody supposed to know that if they're not the ones who even set up the device? They might not even know there's an associated app buried on a smartphone somewhere pertaining to the smart speaker in the first place. So of course, Google and Amazon aren't the only examples, but they are the most popular smart speaker sellers. So that's why I use them to illustrate my point. But all I'm trying to say is that if older people are trying to age in place with smart technology, we might need to amend privacy laws in order to further protect their personal information. So to reiterate, what I've said so far is that first, voice data is sensitive in and of itself. It allows the listener to infer all kinds of personal information, even health information about the user. So this is something to think about as voice-connected devices become more popular in the next coming years. Data collected from these devices is used to make profit for large companies. And also notice and consent policies don't work very well in this context. And so just so we're all on the same page, what do I mean when I'm saying this word privacy? In short, I consider privacy to be control over information that pertains to you. So it's the right to have some control over how your personal information is collected and used. In this case, where smart speakers are collecting information beyond the user's understanding or control, their information is no longer really in their control. So I believe that access to privacy is also closely linked to dignity, which is of course key to aging in place. So how else can we think about this? Well, there are a few options. I won't get too deep into them for the sake of time, but one of them is privacy by design. So this means that devices should just be designed right out the gate with the strongest privacy settings by default. That would mean that users would have to opt in, go into the settings and find a way to opt in to personalized data collection if they wanted that. The next also focuses on design. This is something that I've been working on with a colleague, Crystal Shore from the University of Waterloo, where we're looking at this idea of design justice. And by the way, Design Justice is a great book by Costanza Schock. I would definitely recommend it to everyone. I can put a link to it later, but essentially Design Justice is a framework that understands that how you experience the world could depend on your identity, which can stem from interlocking systems of oppression relating to gender, race, and class. I would also add age to this. So design justice says that everyday people are the experts of their own experiences, their own lived experiences, and should be included in all phases of tech design in order to mitigate issues of discrimination or social inequality. So one example of how design justice could help is if we can get a more diverse set of people of all ages, helping with the design of products that might be repurposed for their age group. So if older people are more involved in designing technologies that they use, and research has shown that they are interested in co-design of things like this, then maybe, for example, Alexa could periodically check in and prompt users to review or change their privacy settings via voice command, which is how they're used to interacting with the device in the first place. Last but not least, you may have already heard the term surveillance capitalism. It's very popular in the surveillance studies literature. It's a critical observation of the ways that these business models work, the ways that personal data is collected for profit with the goal of behavioral prediction and modification. So the idea is that we should have fewer or ideally zero businesses that rely on this business model because advertisers and insurance companies have an active interest in knowing more about how people behave inside their homes. Today, with smart home technology, they're gaining more and more access to that type of information. That might not be something that everybody is comfortable with. They might be consenting to that without realizing it. And so the idea is that under surveillance capitalism, big tech companies yield too much power over everyone else, and they're not very transparent or accountable in their actions. So a few things to think about. Is this a design problem or is this a policy issue or both? And how can we better support older adults with technology without further disempowering them in the process? Here is my list of sources. I would be happy to paste this in the chat if anybody wanted to read further on any of this. And here are my contact details if anybody wants to get in touch with me further with questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Just going through some questions here, just one moment. Stacey. So one question, is it privacy law in Canada that need to shift with technology or app protection for those who are most vulnerable?
What was the second part of the question? Sorry,
is it privacy law in Canada that needs to shift with technology or app protection for those most vulnerable?
Yeah, that's the question. It's kind of interesting to consider whether or not we should try to amend privacy law in order to better account for these types of systems, or should these should these type of controls be designed into the apps themselves in order to further protect? So that's kind of what I was asking him, like, is this a design problem or is this a policy problem? I think it's probably a little bit of both, but I'm interested to hear what anyone else has to say about that as well.